Hello, everybody. Warm welcome to our event with the title Europe's Strength Lies in its Regions. My name is Maria MALTSCHNIG. I am the director of the Karl-Renner-Institut, which is the political academy of the Austrian Social Democratic Party. I'm very glad to welcome you to one of our very prominent events this spring. This is due to the fact that we are able to have ELISA FERREIRA with us. ELISA FERREIRA is a EU Commissioner for Cohesion and Reforms. Her main responsibilities are the support for the regions, the cohesion funds, and the support of the regions. Commissioner FERREIRA, many thanks for taking the time for us and also for our audience. We also welcome Peter Florian-Schütz, who is member of the Vienna City Council and also alternate of the European Committee of the Regions, and Hannes HEIDE, who is member of the European Parliament and also a substitute member of the Committee on Regional Development. And last but not least, the host of this discussion today, ANDREAS SCHIEDER, head of the SPÖ delegation in the European Parliament, who also initiated the event together with us. Many thanks for this. Our event today is live streamed on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. The video will be available after the event on these channels. To our audience, you also have the opportunity to ask questions and make comments on our YouTube and Facebook channel. We will forward your comments and questions then to ANDREAS SCHIEDER, who will try to bring them into this. So what are we talking about today? The topic is the big gap between richer and poorer regions in the EU. We researched on some statistics beforehand, and what we found out is that in 2019, the regional GDP per capita in terms of purchasing power standards ranged from 32% to 260% of the European Union average, which is a quite big range. The northwest region of Bulgaria and other regions in the country, as well as in Romania, belong to the most disadvantaged regions. On the one hand, Luxembourg, but also surprisingly Southern Ireland and also Prague are the richest regions. The overall picture shows that there's a huge gap between West and East within the EU. Also a persistent gap between the EU North and South, and between the metropolitan areas and rural areas within the EU member states. The EU has always been a solidarity and transfer union, and thanks to the cohesion and other funds, the disadvantaged regions can get considerable amounts of money, and they did and do this. So the questions we are trying to answer today is why does the inequality that we see persist? How does the European Commission see this problem? And also on a very recent front, what impact does the COVID crisis have on the inequality between the regions? So there are many questions to Commissioner FERREIRA and our other speakers, and we're eager to hear your point of view and plans. I will now hand over to our host, ANDREAS SCHIEDER. Thank you so much for your initiative and for your persistent work in the European Parliament. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Maria, and thanks to the Karl-Renner-Institut for organizing this series, because the idea is to discuss about the future of Europe, but also on the politics and the everyday needs of the citizens of Europe, especially with our commissioners, social democratic commissioners, which have the portfolios and the chance also to make the difference. Today's guest is, as already mentioned, ELISA FERREIRA, Portuguese, member of the European Commission, but also before for long years, 2 periods, even member of the European Parliament, but before this even in the Portuguese government for planning. So already there we see the issue of your and for environment. So we see things come together now also in the European Commission. And you had been also in the board of the Bank of Portugal and also in the European Central in the Portuguese Central Bank. So anyway, I think we have also with our 2 other guests the chance to discuss about regions and about cities. Both are part of the cohesion policy, but I will no longer use the time, but to give the floor now to our dear friend and Commissioner ELISA Ferreira. We are extremely happy to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for this invitation. And it is, in fact, a pleasure for me to be with you. So going a bit more formal, honorable member Andreas SCHIEDER, honorable member HEIDE, dear friends, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation to speak today, in fact. And I would start by saying how excellent the title is, and the introduction that you just made was really very up to the point. The sentence "Europe's strength lies in its regions" couldn't be more relevant, as like in a chain. The strength of a chain is as strong as the weakest link, and so the weakest ring. So this is true, and the sentence makes a lot of sense. It is profoundly true. In the unique culture and tradition of our many regions, we find, in fact, our roots, our values, and our human connection. In our future knowledge economy, it is at the regional level that crucial connections will be made, from learning key skills to building innovation ecosystems. And Austria has really very strong Länder and demonstrates this point extremely well as the key role that regions play in Austria. Regions represent, in fact, the heart and the engine of Austrian identity and economic prosperity. But not every region starts on equal footing. There are, in fact, significant disparities between the European Union regions, as the introductory remarks made visible. For example, and I will add to what was just said, GDP per head in the 10% most developed European Union regions is more than 3 times higher than the GDP per head, the average GDP per head in the 10% least developed. And this difference is reflected in many other indicators. For example, if you take labor productivity, in the 10% of most performing regions, labor productivity is 6 times higher than in the 10% least performing regions. These disparities are the reason why we have cohesion policy. In fact, this justifies cohesion policy. We invest in the key drivers of development and growth in all regions of the European Union, but especially in the less developed and those with difficulties to keep up with the European Union pace of growth, with the overall dynamic. Over the 21-27 program period, we will be investing around 420 billion euros in current prices in key areas, from innovation to infrastructure, from renewable energy to local development, from public administration to public transport. For several countries, this will represent more than 50% of public investment. The spillovers from cohesion funds are also substantial. In Austria, a recent study by the Austrian Institute for Economic Research, WYFO, shows that over the last 25 years, cohesion projects in Austria have generated an estimated 30,000 jobs and an additional added value of 1.5 billion euros. And also a recent Commission study has also shown that Austria benefits even more, proportionately more, from cohesion projects elsewhere in Europe because of increased investment and trade. Austria has benefited from the rising income of countries like neighboring countries like the Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, and even Slovenia. And the projects that are developed through cohesion in these countries, they trigger a positive impact also in projects and activities located in Austria. It is again Austria's Länder that are the key drivers of Austria's cross-border cooperation. And this is another area I'd like to focus upon. With no less than 6 neighboring EU countries. The rising income and productivity is significant. The investments of cohesion policy are contributing to decreasing regional disparities in Europe. For example, it is in fact evident that the less developed regions are catching up. Albeit in the long term, it takes time, but they are catching up. In 2000, their GDP of these weakest regions in Europe, that GDP per head was around 49%. I'm talking about the year 2000 of the European Union average. And by 2018, it had increased to 63%. However, these figures underline the long-term nature of this process. But it is there. I'd like to quote the World Bank when the World Bank describes the European Union as the modern world's greatest convergence machine. I think that this tells a lot about the role of cohesion policy. The convergence machine works slowly, I just mentioned it, also because it relies more and more on high quality investment that is tied, connected to the European Union policy objectives and priorities, such as greening and climate goals. And convergence often stops or even goes in the reverse sense in times of crisis. We saw this in the financial crisis of 2008. And today we are seeing it again with COVID crisis. And there are risks in the future as every region will have to navigate the digital revolution and the transition to a carbon neutral economy. The need to reduce regional disparities is more important now than it has ever been. Research shows that regional disparities are one of the main explanations for protest movements and the surge of votes anti-system and Eurosceptic parties. There is an interesting text, most of you will know it, that is the geography of discontent that was done before I came to this responsibility. And it shows very clearly how much, if you think that the system is not encompassing you, incorporating you, then you become against the system. Protest movements and protest votes can be linked to areas facing a decline of traditional industry, rising unemployment, to people agreeing with the statement, and this comes from inquiries, my region is being left behind, which sounds too much like I am left behind. In this context, we must ensure that in reality, and not only when we speak, no region is left behind, neither in the crisis and recovery, nor in the long-term green and digital transition. We must ensure that local people's voices are heard, this is of crucial importance for, in fact, creating a cohesive society and for prosperity backed by a well-functioning single market in which everyone can compete. I will structure the remainder of my intervention around three questions. First, what are we doing to support Europe's regions in the crisis and in the recovery? Second, what are we doing to support regions in the long term through the digital revolution and the transition to the green economy? Third, what can be done to give regions and ordinary people a voice in this process? So first, what are we doing to support regions in the crisis and in recovery? And Europe's response to the crisis has been unprecedented in unity. As Europeans, we are in this together. We could only have dreamed of such unity in the last crisis. It was not possible, so it was among our dreams. Unprecedented also in scale. For the first time, we are using Europe's AAA credit rating to borrow on the financial markets. This has created or will create a new 672.5 billion euros recovery investment fund, the so-called Recovery and Resilience Facility. And cohesion policy, which I have the responsibility and honor of representing, has been boosted to 375 billion euros, which is its largest ever. The sooner member states, including Austria, ratify the own resources decision, the sooner the economies that are hit the hardest can receive the financial boost they need. In an open economy such as the EU's, everyone will win from a fast and cohesive rebound, while a K-shaped recovery can be truly detrimental in terms of social inequality, economic and also political cohesion. And they both are key for the single market to work. This is why our speed of response is also unprecedented. In the last crisis, the financial crisis of 2008, it arguably took 4 to 5 years to get Europe to act together. This time, we put together a credible response in 4 or 5 months. In the cohesion policy, we had also emergency support on the ground within 4 to 5, not months, but weeks. And we called it Coronavirus Response Investment Initiative. Probably you know of it, CRI. The CRI, it's the Anglo acronym, delivered emergency supplies. So ventilators, tests, infrastructure, and training for digital schooling, the list goes on. We have granted nearly 500,000 small and medium companies working capital to keep the small businesses afloat. We supported over 2.5 million people in short-term working arrangements and in healthcare. One particular need was helping businesses to create a solid online presence, crucial during lockdown. So the House of Digitalization in Lower Austria, that you know better than I, was supported by 1.2 million euros from the regional fund. And it helped the partners create a digital presence as quickly as possible. Another example, the Upper Austrian High-Tech Fund, High-Tech Funds, a venture capital fund with 3 million euros of cohesion investment, recently financed the development of a rapid test for COVID. And in fact, Austria was among the first to have additional funding of 124 million euros to kickstart the recovery under the REACT EU initiative. The additional funds will be used first to strengthen research and innovation capacities with a focus on a green and digital Europe and life sciences. Second, for investment support for enterprises, especially innovative green and digital projects. And thirdly, for increased energy efficiency and use of renewable energy sources, again focusing on enterprises. And this brings me to my second question. What are we doing to support regions in the long term through the digital revolution and transition to the green economy? The European Green Deal is Europe's new growth strategy. It sets an ambitious objective For Europe to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050, economic growth must be decoupled from resource use. To succeed, we must leave no region behind. Every region will experience fundamental and transformative change across all sectors: transport, energy, agriculture, buildings, and industry. To support this change, around half of cohesion policy will focus on the green and digital transition. Every region starts at a different point, with different sectors and different challenges. So the support to this transformation must be tailored to the local context. One particular concern is regions which currently depend on coal mining, coal generated power, or other carbon-intensive industries. And for some regions, 1 in 4 jobs is in these sectors. These regions will face a particularly sharp adjustment. We have set a Just Transition Fund with 17.5 billion of European investment to support economic diversification in these regions. My third and final point: what can be done to give regions and ordinary people a voice in the process? In the new program period, cohesion policy has a new policy objective: Europe closer to citizens, devoted to local strategies, addressing local needs in collaboration with local people. Some 16 billion euros will be devoted to such local developments led by local people in urban areas. In cohesion policy, we share management with member states. Daily programming is done at the national and regional level. We have a code of conduct on partnership, which sets out that a broad range of partners should be involved, not just when the plans are drawn up, as it is now, but at all stages of the process, from design to delivery. In Austria, for example, Bundesländer are closely involved in the preparation and implementation of Austrian cohesion programs. They are members of the core group drafting the 2021-27 programs. There is also an exchange platform, and I want to hear your opinion on it. It's the Bundesländer dialogue between the federal and the Bundesländer levels in the fields of science, research, technology, and innovation. We in the European Commission would like a similar degree of regional participation when it comes to the recovery and resilience plans. In conclusion, Europe's strength does indeed lie in its regions, the source of our culture and traditions, the place where innovation and ideas happen. The COVID crisis had tested many regions to the limit, and in future years, they face many challenges, from the digital revolution to the green transition. Indeed, teleworking and the spread of green jobs give us an opportunity to change how and where we live, diversifying from the larger cities and building on the quality of life and potentially greener lifestyles of smaller and medium-sized cities. At pace with these new trends, the European cohesion policy, we will be investing in recovery, but not in going back to where we were, in recovery in the digital revolution and in the green, circular, carbon neutral economy. Our goal and challenge is to leave no region behind. We need our partners, regions, civil society to accomplish this goal. So I want to hear your views and I look forward to our discussion. So thank you once again, and let's go on working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, dear ELISA, for this, not only for the input, also for the work which is behind. And you underlined, I think, several important issues, and I will not repeat them now, everything, but as you're also saying, there is challenges like digitalization, climate, questions which maybe also have different answers on the regions and in the cities, but let's say the starting point also more or less is the same. So we are quite happy that Hannes HEIDE, who is member of the European Parliament and from the Austrian Social Democratic Party, but former mayor of Bad Ischl, which is one of the famous cities, and he is also the idea which finally ended up that Bad Ischl and the Salzkammergut is a cultural city, or not cultural city, cultural capital. European cultural capital. So, which also shows that this is a region of strong tradition because it's coming from producing salt, heavily in the, let's say, first times of the industrialization, extremely important, but because nowadays, of course, facing also new issues, and culture is one of the motors of this change. So I will hand over now to Hannes, who is, of course, also a member in the respective committees of the European Parliament on regional policy. Please, Hannes.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you for the compliments for Bad Ischl. And thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, ELISA, for your input and for the remarkable facts and figures. To my opinion, the future of the European Union is decided in the rural areas, because when you take Brexit, it was not decided in the urban centers where 60–70% of the people voted for Remain. It was decided in the rural areas, and Euroscepticism and nationalist ideas are much more in the rural areas than in the urban centers. So Europe has to be felt by the people that live in the rural and remote areas of the European Union. And the cohesion policy and the regional policy of the European Union is the heart of the European policy. As culture and education should be the brain, I have to say that because I'm also a member of the CULT committee. Cohesion happens within member states, it happens within the provinces, and even within cities and municipalities. And the European cohesion policy is a success story because more than a third of all jobs created in the last funding period can be traced back to European regional policy and programs. And that shows impressively what the European Union is able to do. But still, many European citizens, many Austrian citizens ask about the netto financial contribution. They ask, why should we pay for less developed regions and countries in Europe? And even European governments like the Austrian took up this question. I call in mind the Frugal Four. But for me, the cohesion policy is one of the founding values of the European Union, to give less developed countries democratic, social and economic stability, the opportunity to develop growth and the ability to buy products of the netto payers and boost the economy in these countries. So yes, it's a question of solidarity, but it's as well a question of reason. And what do the rural areas need? They know it very well themselves. It's housing, it's jobs, and it's infrastructure. It's mobility, it's healthcare, it's education, it's digitalization, and it's the possibility to react to the climate change. And what they need most is money. So you talked about some examples from Austria, which were and are very successful. I often make the experience when I go out in different parts of the country that people don't know how much money is already spent in the rural areas. The people feel most of the European funding is given to the urban centers, and in fact, it's in the rural areas already. So we need more transparency. We need much more information to the people that they know how the money is spent. And it's very, very necessary not only to give it into companies and into economical growth, it's also very important to give it into society, like it will be with a new funding, to have a wide range of different areas where the money is spent. It needs a more and easier access to the funding in the rural areas. And we need earmarking that the money within the countries is spent on the right issues. And I'm also a member of, a deputy member of the CONT committee, which is responsible for the control of the spending of the money of the European Union. And there are some examples that are not very good, that when the citizens of Europe hear how the money is spent in some countries, and we have some actual cases. It's like in the Czech Republic, like it is in Hungary. So it needs much more transparency and much more information for the people, for our European citizens. But at all, let me conclude, the cohesion policy, the European regional policy, is a success story, and we have to do all and everything we can do to continue with this way. And for me, it's one of the founding values of the European Union, the principle of netto payment and the advantages you have of the cooperation of the Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannes, also for pointing out that the cohesion policy is success, but also living solidarity in the European Union, but not only solidarity, but also with huge impact. I will now switch over to Peter FLORIANSCHÜTZ, who is representing here also the mayor of Vienna, Michael Ludwig, and also representing his hometown, Vienna, in the Committee of the Regions. And you know, the next city from Vienna, which is let's say the closest city from Vienna, is Bratislava. So the region where Vienna is located is between Bratislava, the capital of the Slovak Republic, the Czech south area with Brno as one of the capitals there, and Győr of Hungary. So it is a quite, let's say, lively area, and is one of the Vienna is also the second biggest German-speaking city in Europe and in the world, probably, and the biggest one outside Germany, German-speaking. So there are specific situations also on this, but it's also had been a quite European city. So therefore, Peter, what is your assumption on these issues?
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner FERREIRA. Thank you to the Renner-Institut to give me the opportunity to share my views with you. First of all, cohesion and cohesion policy is the heart, or it should be the heart of European policy. So the European Union pursues a strategy for terms of social and economic development in using cohesion policy, and that's okay also from our side. It's right that there is a huge gap between regions and cities all over Europe, between north and south and east and west. But let us not overestimate the role and the strengths of regions and Bundesländer, as you said, Commissioner FERREIRA, in Austria. The truth is that the European Union is still a union of national states, not a union of regions and the peoples in the regions. And that's a pity, because in my view, we have to remark that the most people in Europe living, 70% of them are living in cities, and all of them living in regions near the ground. And the policy in Europe should be near that ground. And that would be one point to involve regions and cities more than it stands now in the policy of the Union. I think the COVID crisis taught us a lesson on how interdependent we are as a union and how easy the common market can start to crumble. But the common market is not the goal itself. It can only become success if we win the fight for equal living conditions in all parts of Europe. And I think that should be the main goal of the Commission in the future. The Recovery and Resilience Facility spends 600 billion euros, and it's a chance of generations to channel the money on a way that supports the cohesions in the member states. The member states and the Commission have a high responsibility to do that job. Unfortunately, this process in some member states has not been dealt with a transparent manner. Especially in Austria, is rather a bad example. In Austria, there is no strategic discussions, not in all Bundesländer, on the economic aspects and how to spend 3.5 billion euros with cities here in our country. In contrast to the speech of President von der Leyen before the Committee of the Regions, where she asked member states to consult cities and regions. And I can tell you from my hometown, Austria, that we do have not, we do not see this consultation from the national government, and it's a pity from our point of view. Second, how to involve people and how to involve the people more in the real and the concrete policy of the European Union. First of all, the organizations like Eurocities, where Vienna is a very active member, does an excellent job. The Commission has to involve them more and hear of them and receive their proposals as it do it now. And second, it would be necessary that regions and cities should have better heard in the institutions of the European Union, especially in the European Parliament. It's a long way from the proposals from the Commission to the Committee of Regions and our proposals and our amendments. It could be easier and it could be faster, and it would be a way to involve people more than it takes place now. For a special, we talk about the Green Deal. The process was that the Commission talks with member states and stakeholders, and it's preparing a proposal for new laws for new laws and new regulations in the European Union. Only after receiving those proposals, we in the Committee of Regions can talk about those proposals. It seems me too late. We, the cities and regions, are the level of government where the plans have to become reality. And we have to convince, we have to convince the cities and bring high-flying plans down to earth. A better involvement would be a chance for the Union, and it would be a chance for Europe as a whole. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you. So I think we opened a wide range, which also to our audience, we have the possibility that everybody who is listening can write some questions or remarks in the chat in these various platforms where we are broadcasted by the Renner-Institut. And I already got two questions. The one was probably mostly to ELISA FERREIRA, because the one thing is, how can the European Union take in contact with the regions? There is the Committee of the Regions, as we learned now, but also before there is the Regional Committee in the European Parliament, of course. But let's say you as a Commissioner for Regional Cohesion, because one of the questions was also, let's say, how often you have to go everywhere in Europe, probably, no? So maybe you can share with us a little bit of your life, because your life is not only from main city airport to other main city airport, because you have to go also, which could be extremely nice, honestly, because Europe has a lot of nice places. So how can we see the life of the Commissioner for Region?
Shall I answer immediately? Or?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. To all the questions and comments, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, starting with your last question, I mean, with the pandemic, I didn't do any of what I wanted to do because I could not travel as I had wanted. Before the pandemic, I managed to go. I don't want to go to. I mean, I know I've visited, I think, all the countries in Europe as privately, but under these present functions, I really wanted to visit the most critical areas and to see it with the help of the local people, of the regional and local entities, because then you have another angle of view, and I was really very eager to go for it. In fact, I managed to go to Silesia, to Poland, to Brandenburg in Germany. I went to the coal areas, to Katowice in Poland, and I managed to go to Greece, and then I mean, everything stopped, and there were no more flights, and well, I've been working very hard, as you can imagine, because we had all the legislation to produce. So in fact, until December, we did a lot of work with the parliament, and Hannes can confirm it, because we did a lot of work in permanent trilogues and with the council, because we had to prepare the legislation for the new period 21-27 of funds. So we had the long trilogues. I mean, for people that are connected, this may be a bit of a not too clear kind of words, but because the Commission makes the proposal, but then the Parliament and the Member States, the Council, have to discuss it and to make amendments, and then we have to negotiate them. That's the procedure to produce European legislation. That's why sometimes it takes a bit longer. But in fact, we were doing what we call the common provisions regulations. So the regulations on which we have underneath the functioning of the regional fund, of the social fund, of the interreg. So we were producing all this legislation and negotiating it. And this is very time consuming, but it is important, because that's how you decide if you are going to finance or not finance certain types of projects, be it airports or roads or trains. So you have got to decide what we are going to finance in the next phase. There was all this work with the new instruments. So the possibility to reprogram the usual funds in order to create this emergency support that I referred to, this CRE initiative, was another legal text and another initiative. And then the preparation for the future. So the Just Transition Fund for the carbon emitting areas, with the 3 different instruments, and all the rest. But at the same time, we had, I mean, and this is one of the advantages of being, I mean, much more normal to have a digital context like this one that we are having. I have permanent webinars under all the different possible platforms, not only with the Committee of the Regions, but with specific groups, and there was a reference to Eurocities, a reference to the Atlantic regions of Europe, all these groups that we have and that are very vocal and very interesting. So I have in permanence throughout the day webinars with all the different kinds of regions, be it individual regions or groups of regions, or even, I mean, bodies like the Committee of Regions. So this is very normal in my day, and sometimes I have no time to move from one webinar to the next one. Also with member states, they come sometimes. The ministers come to Brussels, and I have physical contacts, but more often I connect under their request, with all the different entities and groups of citizens all over Europe, from all the member states. I think I had already webinars with the stakeholders from all Europe. And I'm permanently in contact, exchanging information, sharing information, trying to answer questions, and this is a very interesting kind of activity. I have to study a lot, to read, and to see how things are developing, because all this closing of negotiations imply this. So we are finishing with member states the pluriannual programs, in particular for countries on cohesion, for which cohesion funds are very, very relevant. We are finishing the negotiations of the REACT-EU. We managed to reprogram the CRE support in very short periods, days, 2 weeks the maximum. We did it. We reprogrammed, and Austria can confirm that. And we are closing also the negotiations for the use of the REACT funds, and we are making progress in the plans for the just transition. So now, I mean, this is an interesting question, because it forced me also to very quickly try to summarize what we do, and but in fact it's very busy days. I've been almost permanently in Brussels. I came for 2 days to Portugal for a special live TV program, but I'm going on Sunday back to Brussels, and we work from 8 in the morning till sometimes 9 in the evening, because having these digital contacts leaves no excuse for traveling. So it really is hard work, but I'm very grateful if we can help I mean, Europe and the regions to recover on a better and more solid basis after this crisis, and if we can go back into growth after this huge problem and crisis. Addressing, I think it was interesting to have these 2 visions, one from Hannes on the rural areas, one from Vienna on big cities, and this illustrates some of the trade-offs that have got to be made in relation to what are our priorities. I would not, and nobody would deny that, in fact, big cities, of course, they have problems, but the logic of cohesion policy is that you help more those that cannot help themselves, so to speak. So I think that progressively we have got to concentrate support in big cities to something that is really innovative in the areas of I mean, green energies, new, very future-oriented transport systems, really innovation that can really inspire the rest of Europe. But our main concern has got to be in addressing how we can speed up the convergence of the most backward countries and regions, because they, by definition, they don't have the capacity to help themselves. And what I tried also to share with you in my initial words is this concept that cohesion policy has got to come hand in hand with the internal market, because the internal market is based on open competition. So if you have a competition between unequal partners, and of course the winner takes it all, and this will politically break Europe, because nobody wants to play a game in which you win nothing. So you open your market to the imports or the exports of the most capable countries, to the investment of these countries, and then you gain nothing from the internal market. So in fact, I mean, at the origin, I think speeding up the convergence of the most backward regions is in itself logic. It's essential for the whole paradigm of Europe to function. But on top of that, and I also tried to stress it. There are massive, and the fact that Bratislava is the closest city to Vienna is just an illustration that, in fact, when we create opportunities for investment and development across Europe, we are feeding up the internal market, and we are going into a win-win situation, because the country I know the best also has shown it, because I mean, decades ago, when we were trying really to catch up with Europe, and we had a lot of infrastructures, basic infrastructures to build. I mean, the first investment came and was done by the most stronger members of what we can call even net contributors. They gained a lot from these initial investments, and the market enlarged. The potential of the internal market enlarged. Then there is a level, the medium income level, in which things are less obvious, and they are more complicated, and it's more difficult for countries to go into higher levels of value added if they don't get a place in the ecosystems of higher value in Europe. And this is also something that we should be attentive to, in order to also not to create what we could call an innovation divide in Europe, because this is in fact win-win, and we can, if we look carefully, we can find very interesting examples and also innovation in the less central areas of Europe. So I mean, in a nutshell, I think cohesion policy has got to be seen as it is. It is absolutely essential, and of course we are talking about the distribution of 1% of our wealth when we are talking about the European budget, and so you see no federal state or any state in which the distribution capacity is 1%, in which the central budget is 1% of the overall wealth. So when we are talking about gains and losses of this 1%, the purpose of a budget is to make redistribution. Otherwise, if you get from the budget exactly what you put in, you better save the trouble of doing a budget. So in a country, you redistribute through the tax system, which we don't have at the European level, or through a budget. Being the budget so small, the ones that contribute to the budget, they get massively benefits from the internal market, the gains from the internal market, but also from these spillover effects of cohesion policy. So I think it's, I mean, it's a fascinating but not easy job, but we can only do it if really we share our basic common principles. And for this, we need to have a network that includes member states that in cohesion policy, they are the interlocutors of the Commission. But of course, one of the conditions that is in the legal texts, both in the RRF, recovery and resilience plans, and also in the multi-annual financial framework, is that you have got to have a strong partnership and a strong exchange of the objectives, not only in the preparation of the plans, but also in the implementation. And I was a bit disappointed listening to the information that in fact even in Austria, that in theory has these mechanisms for exchange, things could they have margins of progress. So I hope we use those margins of progress, because in fact it is essential. That's something that will determine for certain countries more than others, but that substantially determines our common future for a decade, for 10 years time. Okay, you have got to share. You have got to exchange. You have got to feel that all citizens can share the ownership of what we are doing, and I hope these margins of progress, when they exist, that they can be explored because otherwise it will be difficult to get the full benefit of what we are doing in Europe. So thank you very much once again, and I'll stop here from my side. Sorry, I was a bit too long.
No, thank you, Elisa. And anyway, Europe has a lot of regions. But it's true we run out of time because we have to finish at 5 o'clock. So therefore, I would suggest that I give the floor shortly to Peter Florian-Schütz, and then I will ask Hannes to one side answers the question, as we are in a period of transition, jobs, climate after COVID, and we have to develop this in the regions. And as Hannes and Elisa, the two which sit on the key positions, to give us also the final word. But before I give the floor to Peter, and then I will ask Hannes.
Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner. I absolutely agree with most of that what you've said. And I think it's a real chance to reach that goals with the policy that takes place now in the European Union. But nevertheless, we have to take care that regions and cities would have a stronger role and would be more heard in the future in the European Union. I think it's absolutely necessary to do that, because the place where the people live, the place where we talk about Europe, the place where we find acceptance for the European Union are the regions and the cities. And so there are two pillars in my mind. One is the European policy, the pillar of social rights, economic transfer, and the other one. The second pillar is to find acceptance by the people and to bring the European Union nearer to the people. And I think that would be a very important goal, and I think we can do it together. Thank you very much.
So, Hannes.
So I agree with that the cities and municipalities, the towns in Europe are next to the European citizens, so they have to play a strong role. And I want to ask the question why some processes take so long. And I say because there is the European Parliament, because we insist that we need more money on some of the funds. And there are many examples that the European Parliament played a very constructive role for the cities and for the citizens to get more money out of it and to get bigger funding. So what the discussion also showed, how the money is spent is not decided in Brussels. Mainly, it is decided within the countries. In Austria, mainly by the federal states. So we need discussions also within Austria, how the money is spent. And there was another example about the recovery and resilience plan. We, as members of parliament and many interest groups in Austria and even the citizens, do not know how the money will be spent. And to make Europe feelable and to make more interest to the European Union, to make it accepted, to make the people aware, we need transparent discussions about the European Union, how the money is spent, what we spend it for. And my opinion is we can show the people, we can show the citizen what our work is and how the funding is realized. And this is my wish. Another wish is Commissioner FERREIRA has told us she's doing a lot of travel. I want to invite her to the Salzkammergut region and to Bad Ischl this summer. It's very important this summer to see our preparation of the European Capital of Culture, because we are the first European Capital of Culture in a rural inner alpine area. And I think this is a very interesting experience for you. So see you in Bad Ischl.
Okay.
So, Hannes wants to see you before 24 when the Capital of Culture takes place. And I tell you, it's just between us, but it's worth to go there.
Well.
So then I think, because I think it was a topic which is of major impact of the everyday life of the people in the European Union. And it's one of the fields of European politics where really we can deliver. And we had today all the levers, the city politics, the European Parliament, and the European Commissioner with our dear ELISA FERREIRA shaping also the policy of the European Commission. I want to thank all the audience. It was afternoon, but we had quite good attendance, and we are online anyway. I want to thank the questions. I want to thank the Renner-Institut, and the best greetings to wherever you are, in Portugal, in Vienna, in Salzkammergut, in Brussels, or somewhere else in our nice continent. Thank you and have a nice evening, and especially thank you, Elisa.
Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.
Oh, wow. Dankeschön.